I just gotta say, the last two Ridley Scott movies I watched, that being Gladiator 2 and Gladiator 1, were really good.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are entertained. And hello and welcome to Cassette Take, where you can eject wherever you want, but please don't forget to rewind. I'm Ethan.
I'm Annmarie.
And who are you, little man?
Maximus Aurelius.
And that is indeed Steven. Got a boy Steve joining us again for another Cassette Take here. Steve, how you doing, buddy?
Doing pretty good. I'm feeling very pumped up after that movie. Holy cow.
Yeah, so Annmarie, what did we just go see?
We just got out of seeing Ridley Scott's Gladiator 2.
Gladiator 2.
25 years in the making, which I kind of forgot about.
Yeah, no kidding.
Not in the making, but since the last one.
Right.
So,
It feels like the gap in the story between the first one and the second one was in real time because it's so long time.
yeah, it's crazy how long it is, but it was a good film.
Oh my gosh.
Ridley Scott needed the win, and he got the win.
Which, yeah, absolutely. Coming off of his last film, Napoleon, which you guys can all go back to our review of that. It was an interesting time to say the least.
So I conquered.
Era thing was
Wasn't it also with Joaquin Phoenix?
It was with Joaquin Phoenix and Vanessa Kirby.
Yeah. And he still couldn't make the landing on it. But anyway, that's another review. But yeah,
He commented us. He didn't really stick the landing.
no, but yeah. So coming off of this and a few of his other more recent films, Ridley Scott has been very hit or miss. I think that's been a pretty bit universal line of thought for moviegoers. And so going into Gladiator 2, which has been a sequel, a lot of people have been kind of beckoning for ever since the first one came out. And, you know, it's like, yes, people wanted it, but at the same time, Ridley Scott in the current state he's in now, do people want it with this version of Ridley Scott? And again, coming right off of Napoleon, I'm like, I don't know, man. I just... And I can, you know, without any hesitation say, man, Ridley Scott's back, people.
Finally. Welcome back, Ridley. We miss you. How are you?
How are the kids? How are the kids?
He's finally entertaining.
This movie, though, was so jam-packed. The cast is absolutely stellar with Pedro Pascal, Joseph Quinn, Paul Mescal. There's so many people in that. Denzel Washington, I think, I'm going to make a hard case, you guys. I think this might be Denzel's best role.
Really?
I'm going to make a hard case for this.
He was stealing the show throughout the movie, and I gotta say, him as his character, I don't want to spoil the movie, but
No spoilers.
no spoilers yet. What a performance.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the way he portrayed his character, I didn't know what was going to happen next. He was so charismatic and just so well, like, I don't know, I feel like the role was written like in a certain way, and Denzel just takes a script and it's just like, oh, I know what I'm gonna do with this.
Yeah, he's Denzel freaking Washington. He can do anything.
And in the scenes he was in.
I also want to say this movie, like, the original Gladiator is so homage to Rome and everything, and this movie really keeps up that justice of it. I felt like I was during that time, really, and it was absolutely incredible. I think that was just fantastic to be a part of and everything.
Yeah, I would say, you know, again, for the spectacular movie that the original Gladiator was, one of the biggest aspects of that movie were the visual effects and the set design and all that to make it feel like we were in Rome. The first time I watched the original Gladiator, it was on a very small TV, like probably about the length of a ruler. And I'm just like still surprised with how immersed I felt in the grand spectacle and city that it was Rome. And, you know, again, there were a couple of things here and there because, again, it does age a little bit, but, you know, it still was able to immerse me. Here, I feel like it was able to really bandage up those, you know, graphical flaws that aged and like really made this probably, you know, again, with how time goes on and how visual effects will probably look, you know, dated no matter what we do as time goes on. I mean, what are you going to do? But here, I feel like it's going to be quite a while before we see any holes in this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think also a big part of it is the fighting is so cool in this. Whoever choreographed the fights, I don't know who you are, but you did a wonderful job. It was just so intense.
It was gory. It was beautiful. It was awesome. I felt like I was right there in the Coliseum.
Which, speaking of, Steve, you actually just saw the first Gladiator right before walking into this theater.
Yeah.
So how was that for you?
That was your first time ever watching Gladiator?
Yeah. It's somehow I missed my my watch list for so long, but you know, obviously it was an Academy Award winning Best Picture, so I had to watch it, especially after going buying the tickets for the second movie. But yeah, this was kind of a weird experience of watching the original, having that sort of off the cuff reaction, and then a couple hours later going to see the sequel, and I kind of have a view of no nostalgia for this movie at all, and I was sucked into the first one. Even though there were some scenes in the first movie that did have dated effects, it was the story itself was just so captivating. I was watching it while I was working from home today and did not get much work done.
Well, because Ethan and I have seen the original one. I saw it a while back. You saw it a while back.
I saw it like probably about 2 years ago, even though I should have seen it sooner. Probably like a sin that will forever be on my cinema soul for quite some time. But yeah, no, 2 years ago on that tiny little TV. So
Oh my gosh. That's crazy to me. Like, you've never seen it before. It's such a good movie.
I couldn't really find it on streaming services today, so well, it was on Pluto, but it had 100 ads. So I was desperate, and I looked online, and I found out there was a DVD for sale at Walmart. So I took a trip back to like 2008, went to the store and bought a DVD. And then I did. I 100% did.
Oh my gosh.
Physical media is king, man. These streaming services will not last.
physical media shall slay. And we
DVD is the Ottoman Empire.
Well, I would hate to bring this up right away, but did you like this one better than the first Gladiator?
I feel like the story that Maximus had was much more captivating. I do think it was overall a stronger film. But the second movie, I feel like at the end of the first movie, I felt like there was no room for a sequel. And I was having heavy doubts coming into the sequel of, okay, what are they going to do? After watching the second movie, I could say it earns its place, and it really is a wonderful story. If you love the first movie, you got to watch the second.
Mm-hmm. And we don't want to get into too much yet of how they connect. I feel like most people know how, but not just quite yet. We'll hold off a little bit for that. But it truly does pay such honor to the first one too, which I think was super special.
Oh, absolutely. Like it I think goes beyond just like the occasional nostalgia nod. It really goes out of its way to be a true, sincere continuation of what came before. And that's one of the biggest themes of this film, is about that legacy and carrying on what comes next for not only a person, but for the people around you. So I think it's just a wonderful succession of that. Again, without giving too much away, I think that if you wanted a good successor, the next emperor of the gladiatorial realm, this is a great successor to that previous film. I will say that there were if I were to have one issue with the film, it's very minute. It's very minute. It's like there were some scenes where I'm just like, oh, you already kind of nailed the head on the coffin with this. You probably didn't need to throw in that another scene just kind of reestablish that same message again. I won't get into what scenes until we get into spoiler talk, but there was just a couple moments, not many, but like just noticeable ones for me where I'm like, oh, okay, that you already told us visually and verbally what happened here. You didn't need to do another method of telling us,
I know exactly what scene you're talking about, which is super funny. Oh yeah, I could pinpoint it because I thought the same exact thing. I'm like, okay, you already did that, but like that's okay.
Wait, is this a three-way connection, Steve?
I have no idea.
I will say, I do think the first act was stronger than the second act, and maybe just because there's a lot of change up in the second act that happens that I didn't expect, really. And so I still think the first act was stronger. I think the fights were more stronger in that one, and the story. We can get into it in a little bit. But
I feel like the second half was a little bit stronger. I felt like the first half was pulling in more nostalgia in the setup. It felt pretty similar to the plot of the first movie, at least at the start. In the second half, I felt like it really came into its identity of being a sequel.
Yeah. And like I said, it really does focus on the what comes next, and I think the what comes next from that first act into the second act, I think it really transitioned well. For me, I think that wasn't really a first act versus second act situation. I just thought like there were some scenes here and there that flowed well together, and then there were some scenes that I'm like, oh, again, it kind of ruined the flow a little bit for me, not by much, but yeah, it was more about that flow, because with the first Gladiator movie, it was a very emotionally complex but simple story, like one that felt like a sincere old tale of old from mythology, right? And this one felt like the story was much more complex, but the emotions were much more simple. Like,
oh,
but not in a too much of a bad way, but just I felt like in comparison to the first movie, there was a little more emotional depth into that first one.
I don't know. I gotta disagree with you on that, but I can't really say why till we get into it.
I feel like there is a lot less conflict of character in the main lead compared to the first movie. Marcus Aurelius in the first one, his call to action is, the hero's journey, deny the call to action. For this one, the main lead does deny the call to action, but I feel like it's less of a turning point for him when he does, rise up. Not to go into spoilers, but yeah, I kind of do agree that the raw emotion of the characters is simple, but it is powerful.
Yes.
Interesting.
So again, not to completely say like, oh no, like this movie's such emotionally simple, but like no, it's just relatively speaking to the first one.
Interesting. Yeah.
Just like my
Yes.
opinion, man.
What did you guys think of the pacing compared to the first movie?
The first one I felt flowed better. Like it felt like this happened, but it had breathing room in between it to make it feel like it wasn't just a da 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 da. It was like da 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 da. With this, it felt like almost a little more modern, like a modern historical drama, which like, with more of a gladiatorial Ridley Scott flair to it. So it still kind of had more of those Game of Thrones-y kind of stoppage moments where it's like, oh, let's talk about the political dynamics. And, the original Gladiator movie did have those here and there, but I think this movie really leaned more into that than the previous one did.
That's my problem with the second act. I felt like it was really rushed towards the end. I think I looked at my phone once just to see where we were at, and it was 20 minutes, and it was before like the big thing happened. I was like, what? Like, how are we gonna do this in 20 minutes? Like, guys. And so I felt like it flowed pretty smoothly to that last part right there. And so again, is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. It's, we went to go see a fight, and that's kind of what we got. And so,
Steve, how about you?
I feel like the pacing, it was very smooth but slower than the original movie. The first movie, I feel like there was a lot of time jumps, especially after Maximus becomes a slave. It feels like he loses his wife, and then he's in the Colosseum of Rome in like the span of like 10 minutes in the first movie, which is fine for getting the story along. But in this movie, it felt like it's a much steadier build up to him trying to kill who he wants to kill. Like his main objective isn't reached until like I would say 3/4 the way in the movie. So yeah, I felt like the pacing was a lot more smooth in the second movie. I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, steadier and smooth would definitely be, what this movie is in comparison. I mean, the other one, the first Gladiator, I feel like was steady, but a little more. I don't know. It's like the more I think about it, the more I'm just like the first sequence of because I don't agree with you on that. Like the first Gladiator, there was such a great period of time in between, like the beginning of the movie to when he gets to Rome. And I actually didn't think about that till after my second viewing of the movie, which was today before we went to go see it, Gladiator 2. So, yeah, I don't know. I'd have to disagree with you on that, but I do kind of understand like how it could seem like that.
Yeah.
But
Well, spoilers?
I think we should do a rating first.
Yes. Thank you, Steve.
Wow, that transition.
No, however, from our sponsor.
if only. AMC, get over here. Come on, you want to know.
Can I just say this? Shout out to our movie theater. We've been having some great experiences at this movie theater. No people talking. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, although there was one person that just was really no complaints here. Just one person that was just so excited about the movie in the back that was like applauding every single good moment. I'm like, good for you, man. They're really thirst. Yeah, it's just like no one else was doing it. It's kind of really awkward.
I can handle that. We didn't have anyone singing in Wicked. We didn't have anyone cheering in this. I'm all good.
I don't know, maybe he picked up some of the popcorn on the ground and rubbed it into his hands. Kind of like a Gladiator moment. But, okay, before we give our ratings here, let us know, I'm sorry, timeline. I have no sense of timeline here. Annmarie.
Out of how many?
Out of 10, pissed off. What are they called? Why am I blanking out? Where are the baboons? Out of 10 pissed off baboons. What would you give him, Gladiator?
Oh, those bamboos. I would say
Baboon.
I'm thinking, hold on, because I still think the first one's better, and so I would give the first one a higher score, but this one I think I would give a 8.5, which I think is pretty good. Is this my type of movie? No, I still enjoyed it and everything. I still love seeing the sword fights. I still think Paul Mescal is awesome in this. I also think Pedro Pascal kills it in this. Denzel Washington's amazing. But the first one's still better in my head, and that gets like a solid 9. So I think I have to drop this one a little bit because of that too.
Understandable.
Mhm.
Steve, how about you?
So this is gonna be a double review because I watched both movies for the first time. So the first one, I would say I was much more invested, and overall, I think the movie was a lot stronger than the second one. Not saying the second one's bad. A little foreshadowing for my score for the second one. I would give Gladiator 1 a 9.5, and then Gladiator 2 a 9.0.
Okay.
Only a half point off, but I feel like they hold up to each other. I feel like it's a good duology.
They complement each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ethan.
That's me. Yeah, so I would have to say, since we're talking about both of them, I guess now, the first one is a perfect 10 out of 10 for me, without question. This one, again, I just felt like the rhythm of it didn't flow as nicely as the other one did, but I still really enjoyed it and thought it was a masterful piece. And again, like, my expectations weren't as high as they probably would have been with the recent, streak from Ridley Scott in his recent films. So I was pleasantly surprised, and I will have to give this a somewhere in between and this might change with like another viewing and all that, but in the 9 to 9.5 range.
All very good.
So
A cuff review, right?
off the blade review. But yeah, guys, so we just saw Gladiator 2. Have you guys seen Gladiator 2? I know there've been some early screenings here and there, so if you've seen it, Let us know what you guys thought of it. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you kill your friend sitting next to you to fight over, whether or not it was a good idea to watch the movie?
What?
As good Gladiator friends always do.
Okay.
But yeah, hey guys, whatever you're thinking, let us know your takes on our tapes in those comments down below. And with that,
Like Caesar, give this video a thumbs up.
sweet of you.
It ties into the theme of this.
All right, guys, so it's spoiler time. So unless you're a sadistic weirdo who has not seen the movie, but, really likes to poison yourself with spoiler talk, and again, forever in perpetuity, that will echo in history, I will keep calling you out on that. So please leave if you've not seen the movie. Now, it's spoiler time.
Spoilers.
Denzel Washington is the main villain, and he absolutely kills it because he's an incredible actor and deserves everything in this role.
And he not only kills it, he kills everyone and everything he can in his wake.
No, I honestly think Denzel Washington absolutely murdered this role. He was so incredible. His gravitas, the way he, just speaks. And I truly bought him as the villain of this story.
He has such great sinister charisma about him, especially in this film, and it's so wonderful. It's so evil, and by the end of it, he was washing a ton of blood off of his hands. Or I'm sorry, hand.
And it kind of builds up to him being the villain. It's not revealed right away. He has his own agenda, but it builds up to him where I was like, oh shoot, I get why he wants to take over Rome. It makes so much sense.
He definitely had, at the start of the movie, the role of Proximo, the mentor, character type. And over the course of the film, you see him being more and more greedy with power. And it kind of symbolizes the corruption of Rome. He's gaining more and more power and aiming for that throne. And it is a sight to see, I gotta say.
Yeah. I just didn't expect it. I really did not expect him to play a character like that. And so it really, well done, Denzel. I think he gets the Oscar nomination for sure.
I expected him to play that role to almost to the extent that he did. I think the way that they put him over the edge towards the very end, I'm like, I was not expecting that. But everything preceding that, oh, yeah, no, I see this coming from a mile away. Just, again, there's something about that sinister charisma where I'm like, I see you.
I also wanted to go back because we kind of already mentioned it, that this one does really connect to the first Gladiator because Paul Mescal is Lucius.
Yeah, Lucius.
The little kid. Which I don't know about you guys, but you just watched it today, Steven, so you might have a better idea. I did not really know how they were gonna connect these two.
Yeah, after watching the first movie, I'm like, there's nothing more to tell. I was like, and when he was going through the backstory of it, I was like, it kind of does make sense for him to leave Rome because he's an 8-year-old kid. No one's gonna look to him to be a leader of Rome.
And if you look at ancient history, there's been plenty of times where there have been kids that have been put in a situation where by lineage they are to be put into power and they are immediately killed by surrounding senators or someone conspiring against them because again they're little childs that can't think for themselves.
Maximus just killed his uncle. The corruption's still there in Rome and it's very prevalent. It needs a leader to get that swamp cleaned out.
It kind of makes me wonder if there is an opportunity for a third Gladiator movie.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe, but it's just the idea is so, maybe it's how they deal with, invasion from an outside territory.
Mm-hmm.
That might be it and it would actually bring the movie full circle now that I think, the series full circle because the first one begins with them invading, Germania. And then, you got this one where it's mainly just Romans against Romans. And then you have the next one, which could be, foreign adversary going against them and invading them and being a higher power.
I think a better plot for the third movie would be revolving around the fall of Rome. Like I'm not sure how the timeline lines up in history.
Well, yeah, that would be kind of like more leaning on the fall of Rome, where you have an outside invader coming in.
Yeah, but so a lot of this movie is all about legacy. Yeah, the first movie is about freedom and sort of the dream of Rome. And there was a line in the first movie by Commodus saying that life is only but a dream. So I think it might be poetic if if they ever come out with a third movie, that the dream of Rome dies with them, sort of, a finite amount of time for what was thought to be an infinite empire.
Well, and I think they would do a third one if this does well. I don't have the numbers on me exactly, but I feel like this will draw in a lot of people, just because word of mouth right now seems pretty good. I think last time I checked, it was like 76% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, and I will say that, while it's not on the same level as Barbenheimer, Glickit or Glick, whoever. Here's the thing, though. It's, of course, not as big as Barbenheimer, but it's like a very diet Barbenheimer. And I know that there are people out there doing it, but it's just that might bring in a small crowd, but definitely not on that same level. Nowhere close.
You watched too many of Paul Mescal's interview because he kept saying "clicking" too.
No, not just him. I'm telling you, there's some people, but again, it's not. And who knows? Because with the Midwest, we're getting our winter season. A lot more people are encouraged to go to the movies during this time of year because it's like they want to stay indoors for longer periods of time. That could be a big factor into this one for longer movies and run times. So, I mean, that could be a factor as well.
Never know. I do. Ethan kind of already brought this up, but I kind of want to circle back to this because I think this is a really interesting point. Mr. Ridley Scott, I have suffered so many of your movies the last 9 years. I'll be honest. I think his last good one was The Martian in 2015, so 9 years. He did House of Gucci. He did The Last Duel. He did Napoleon. Which was one of our first reviews. I remember it, which was crazy. I want to say I don't think he's 100% back because I still think there was pacing issues in Gladiator 2, but I do want to say I think he's stepping back into where he stood years ago on that throne of that Mount Rushmore of directors.
Yeah, I will say, again, The Martian seems to be the universal thought of like where Ridley Scott truly last finished off, and everything in between has been, I know a lot of people like The Last Duel and thought it's just like the marketing was terrible for it, so not many people saw it. And then Ridley did himself no favors by, blaming the youth for that instead of the marketing team. But he's been doing himself no favors whenever there has been a bomb of his on top of that. So it's been like really insult to injury with him. And so it's really good because, again, I do appreciate Ridley Scott's films. I love Alien. I love The Martian. Prometheus I enjoyed. And Blade Runner, of course, is, one of my favorite movies. So, it's just the man has so much to offer. He's given us so much. And of course, Gladiator's high up there. So to see him come back, not only to bring back a former IP, which we saw him do with Alien, and it was very hit and miss again.
Mhm.
Gladiator, to see him land, right on his sandals was just wonderful.
I just gotta say, the last two Ridley Scott movies I watched, that being Gladiator 2 and Gladiator 1, were really good.
Yeah.
Bravo. That's just my perspective.
Well, because he truly is. I think Ridley Scott's a genius. Like, you put him on that Mount Rushmore with Steven Spielberg, James Cameron's probably up there. There's so many. And so to see him kind of back into his roots and actually make a good film was really awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to the Gladiator 2 here specifically, something I will bring up that a lot of people from the first movie were like, "Oh man, I wish I saw that." And was what if Maximus was able to get that army to march on Rome? And I thought like, oh, in this segment, the way it was building up to it, I'm just like, oh, we might actually get that war here. Like that's gonna be fucking cool. And it's like build up. You see the two armies like marching against each other, and they're like mere yards away. And we're like, oh, this is gonna be so cool. And then Denzel and Paul Mescal have their little fight, and it's like, no, we happy now. We peace, brothers.
Maybe Ridley's saving it for the third one. He's like, wait.
Oh, you almost had it there.
I think it might have just been too expensive. You know how many horses there were?
Bro, there were so many people there. It's like you have them there already. You might as no. I mean, it made sense with the story and narrative, so I'm okay with it. But it's just like, come on, like, oh man, it was like so close.
Ethan, we already sat through Ridley's longest film, Napoleon. I don't want to sit through another super long one.
Gives me blood. No, but another point I want to bring back up though, that we said we were gonna talk about was Annmarie. What in your head was the scene that you believe you were on the same page as me for like that like that shouldn't have been there. Like you already beat this horse into the ocean or sea, if you will. And
Is it the dying scene where he's like in that grade area and he's like hears the voice of his wife and all that? Because they did that multiple times. I was like,
They
really need that.
They reused the same scene for that, I'm pretty sure.
no, I wasn't talking about that.
Oh, you weren't? What was the one?
It was coincidentally that was kind of on the same page, but it was when she first died. It's like,
His wife?
yeah, his wife gets shot with the arrow and she falls down. They have his reaction, and she sees her depart on like the little boat, and in the afterlife, and then it's like he wakes up in the sea and then happens to see her corpse like just in the distance away floating. I'm like, okay, I felt like you didn't need to show the corpse in the sea. I feel like it would have been like a solid farewell after you see her fall and just like kind of disappear from existence there. Maybe that's more of a creative critique on my end, but like it just felt like, okay, I get it. Bro, I get it,
I think it might have flowed better if he saw her body first, and then like on the ship he had a dream where she crossed the river. That kind of him mourning his loss of his wife.
I understand where you're coming from, though. Like, there's parts of this movie that I felt like editing-wise could be trimmed down to maybe not like a half an hour, but like maybe like even 5 minutes could be trimmed down from this movie.
Yeah. Also, I kind of thought it was a little silly with some of the dog stuff, like where the dogs that were roaming around. What's her fate? Lucilla?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, like I get like, again, that was real, like that Romans had dogs and like fancier dogs, for the fancier people. But I don't know, like it just kind of felt a little odd where it's like, okay, let's go like into the house. Like there were two dogs with her first, and then she's like, oh, the one that's with her, like, okay, let's go. It's like this with the other one. No, nothing from the puppies. They did their job. But it's just like when she goes into the room after that, it was like, where'd the dog go? Where'd the dog do it?
Like I said, little scenes that could be just trimmed shorter, make it like 5 minutes shorter.
I was kind of getting used to like all the exotic animals, like the tigers, the rhino, the monkey. So seeing a dog was like, oh, that's weird.
We know we got a rhino and bamboo. I can't say baboons. Okay.
Baboons.
I was shocked there wasn't more because they showed a tiger and that wasn't really in it that much. Like
It's called PETA.
What you're
Irity tiger.
Well, I mean, we've seen. Well, they did show tigers in cages, but like we saw tigers in the first one, so they wanted to do other stuff like the baboons and the
rhinos.
the rhino, the shark. Which, by the way, I love how they implemented the aspect of like the Roman Colosseum being used as like this giant pool as well. Because I mean, again, that's stuff that's actually was able to be done, and to me, like that's so baffling. I don't know, like when you see the Colosseum, and how it looks today, it just like you could fit like a mini pool in that thing, like without having to worry about like draining into the ground or like the leakage and like with all the trap doors. I don't know, with something going back all the way to antiquity, it's just so bizarre to think about.
That was my favorite fight scene.
No, the boat.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Oh yeah, that was pretty cool. I thought it was awesome. He was like using his boat to ram into the other. I was like, oh, that's a serotonin hit.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you on that. The boat stuff was my favorite stuff.
You like
Yeah.
good stuff?
I love boat stuff.
You're just a cool guy.
Yo, give me that naval fun. Don't take that out of context. Naval with an A. But anyway, guys, I don't know about you, but I think we just saw Gladiator 2 and we talked about Gladiator 2. Now I think we have to live the legacy of seeing Gladiator 2.
Go out and see this movie.
It's a must watch. I gotta say, definitely watch the first movie before you go see the second movie, though. You'll be missing out on a lot of stuff. I'm very glad.
Literally just watch.
It was like if I had not seen the first movie, I would be regretting it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely don't go into this. What?
Who the fuck is this Maximus guy?
Oh man.
Yeah, but no, guys, hey, thank you for joining us on this episode of Cassette Take. Let us know your thoughts on Gladiator 2. And again, if you have any spoiler thoughts, make sure you give a little warning beforehand. But otherwise, we always want to hear your takes on our tapes in those comments down below. But thank you for joining us here, always on Cassette Take. Don't forget to give us the thumbs up, hopefully not the thumbs down. We like to keep our throats not,
The gods have spoken.
But we were indeed entertained, and we thank you for being entertained with us here today. So we hope you haven't ejected thus far into the podcast. Whether you have or haven't, please don't forget to rewind. I've been Ethan.
I'm Annmarie.
I've been Steven.
And in strength, there's honor. Wait, that's the line, right?
Oh great.
Well, isn't that the line?
Way to leave a legacy.